Right to this. Hey everyone, this is Robert. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. And today we have our lovely special guest in the corner. Very special guest, might I add. We have Mr. Ian Flynn. Um, I don't think an introduction needs to be made. Like you know him for comics, Sonic, anything. Like need I go on? So, Mr. Ian, thank you very much for joining me on this
Glad to be
wonderful
here.
afternoon. Yeah.
So,
So,
what are we doing here on the Station Square podcast?
oh, well, we're just gonna be chatting about, stuff and just, talk about your career and just, chat about what we love. That's just pretty much what I do for, about an hour-ish or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be fun. So, yeah, um, let me see. I guess to start off with a little bit of a tiebreaker, how's your year going so far? Just to start us off with.
It's been very, very busy. Everything kind of went on hold as the holidays kicked into high gear. And then there was like maybe a 1 week dry spell as the new year got started. And it's like, okay, everything now. And it's not stopping, which is good. I like to be busy.
Oh yeah, totally. I know with this because like as of right now, we're like currently just starting Easter weekend, so it's like,
Mhm.
it just doesn't stop. So it's yeah. Um yeah, but with oh, and by the way, like I just came in, extra I mean totally not sponsored by Team Four Star. So
No, 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 of
I
course
know
not.
this is like Sonic, but I don't know, I just felt like wearing this for the occasion.
Well,
I
I
don't know.
have
But
given my
anyways,
nod to them occasionally in the book. So it's a
yeah,
Venn diagram.
yeah, we'll talk about more about that in a little bit, but yeah, let's see. So, with all of that said and everything, I know that we've been into this little, like, I don't know, thing for like 3-ish years now. So, how has everything been since, 2020, like, as we're into the new decade, or at least the new normal, I suppose.
It is what it is, you
Question
know.
mark.
You do what you can, keep your head down, get your work done, take care of those you can, and look after yourself, and just roll with it.
Yeah. Um, So let me see. I usually ask like, "How did you get started into blah blah blah?" But was writing your comic books always just something? Excuse me. Was it always something that's been like at the in the back of your mind ever since you were a kid? Like, did you have other career aspirations or like, what's your little story?
Aspirations implies I knew what I've been doing at all. For I guess comics have always been my calling because that's always what I've done. I like to tell stories. I like to draw. I'm not good at it, but I like to do it anyway. I've cleaning out a closet years back. I found some old poster that I drew all over the back of, and I remembered that it meant something to 3-year-old me back in the day. This was a visual narrative of some point. Now it's just marker scrawlings, but the intention was there. And I've just been very fortunate that I've been able to make a career out of some form of visual storytelling, be it comics or animation or video games. It's just what I like to do. And apparently I'm good enough at it that people keep hiring me.
I mean, as they should. Um, I mean, it is really cool because, like, for comics and writing, it's kind of something that's been gaining, like, it's always been really very big, but I think, after the pandemic and stuff, I think comics have been having more, like, of a resurgence as of late, especially, with the work that you've been doing and also other comics that I've been, you know, I've been delving into, whenever I have some spare time, which, yeah, that's, what is free time?
A
So,
precious commodity.
oh, totally. So I know this is a question that you often get asked, like, multiple times. Like, what is your introduction to the Blue Blur? Like, what's your little Sonic origin story?
Uh, I can't remember what exactly came first, but it was kind of a triple threat of One day, Dad came home with the Genesis package with Sonic 2. Like, not a Christmas present, not a birthday present, just came home one day with the Genesis, said, "Hey, family's got a console now." And it's like, okay. So that's where that started. But this was also during the media blitz of the early 90s. So Sat AM and Adventures of were on all the time. And, Sat AM got me hooked on Sonic stories. And right around that time, my best friend handed me, because he was a huge Sonic fan, and he handed me a copy of the Archie comics. And he says, "I don't know why, but I feel like you should have this." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." And I read that, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but I was intrigued. And so I started picking up back issues. And those back issues had stuff where, like, oh, I need more context. I'll buy more back issues. Well, now I'm invested. I want to know where this goes. And I was just completely hooked. Sonic was in my veins from then on out.
Yeah, I remember when I was playing like the Sonic Adventure demo, I think, oh, this is how much I'm gonna really make myself. Like, does anybody like remember like those old CD-ROMs, like the Dreamcast generators? Like, that was when they had like demos for the Dreamcast games back when they were coming out, and then I was playing Sonic Adventure. That was when I started getting hooked. So then I was playing like the classic games, then came, I guess the modern games. Yeah, then from here on out, I think I started really falling in love with Sonic. Well, I mean, first, like I was playing a lot of Super Mario games, and then like my love for Sonic just really started like blossoming around like in the early mid 2010s, and then from here on out, it's just kind of been like, um where's this gonna go next, I know that people have been wondering, like, where is Sonic? What is Sonic's future? What do we have in store? And it's like, I'm not Sega. I don't know where it's gonna go in the near future. I mean, I don't even know where we're gonna be in, like, in the next, like, for the rest of this year, because, you know, everything can be unpredictable. I mean, we have a pandemic, we have, like, a lot of stuff that's been going on. Sega has their other properties, so it's like, whatever happens, happens. That's just
Mhm.
kind of how I've always been. But yeah, it's just kind of, very fascinating of like whenever I hear somebody be like, "Oh yeah, I got a Sega Genesis," and it's yeah, that's if anybody owns like if people still have a Sega Genesis, like sound off in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious. I know a lot of um old school hardcore. A lot of fans still have like old classic game consoles. I mean, like I do have my fair share. So, if you still have like your really, really like have consoles that go back from like the 80s or 90s, let me know. I am interested. So, um, and yeah, I think after your little Sonic Origin story, what led you to, I guess, RG, IDW, what led you to start writing for the Sonic stuff?
Well, I was pursuing my English degree in university,
Mhm.
and it dawned on me that, what do you do with this English degree other than teach other people how to get an English degree? And I had grown up reading the comics and figured, well, how hard it is it to break into the industry? I'll just write for the comics. So I started doing the one thing you're never supposed to do and sending unsolicited applications to Archie. And I just so happened one year there was a change in editors. The new editor was very big on scouting new talent and took a gamble and looked at my application package and said, "All right, kid, you ain't bad. Let me show you how to do things right." And showed me how to properly format a script, let me cut my teeth on some background research and data organizing. And I worked my ass off those first 3 months. And he's like, "All right, I'm really looking to shake things up. You want to be lead writer?" And it's like, okay. So that was my start. And I've been riding high ever since.
Yeah, do you have like any particular issues that you really enjoyed writing?
I, I mean, all of its writing Sonic, man. Every bit of it was just personal fulfillment. I get to work on Sonic. I love Sonic. This is just fun. Um, and then there's certainly some standouts here and there. Shoot, what was it? I think it was Sonic Universe number 3 or so, the one where we introduced Omega. Um, the Sonic and Mega Man crossover we did was probably some of the best that the team has ever produced. Uh, Even stuff that I'm not particularly fond of in hindsight, I can find something I liked about it, or at least remember the rationale at the time, try to play defense of it. But yeah, I mean, I get to play with all these toys that I grew up on. I get to indulge my creativity in something that I personally enjoy. You can't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah. So one thing I'm noticing with like, the Sonic comics is how like with Archie and also for IDW, Sonic has also had like a noticeably I mean, it's not like, say, Shadow the Hedgehog or anything, but it does have like a more darker tone for like with the comic series, and I really do appreciate it. I mean, it's dark, but it also has some lighthearted moments, so that's what I really look. I do enjoy like a bit of a blend and a mix between like, the two tones without it clashing with one another. So that's something that I really do appreciate about, reading the comic books. And yeah, that's just really something that I know that a lot of fans really appreciated when it came to like since issue 160 up until 290 up until the cancellation. But like it's what I always say, like you just can't keep Sonic was still I mean he's still pumping, he's still running, and it's not like one comic cancellation means that it's the end all be all. Like he's still like doing stuff and he's like out there running around somewhere and he's just making his way and just continuing to just do his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just pretty much what I'm getting at. So yeah, like for IDW, like do you enjoy working on Archie or IDW out of curiosity?
Oh, both. They are. They've both been good to me. I've had a good relationship with all the editors. We've had stables of excellent artists all the time throughout both runs. Well, 3 runs, depending on how you want to slice the Archie stuff. But yeah, it's been a pleasure regardless.
Oh yeah, totally. And for Sonic Frontiers, because I know it just recently came out, since this was like your first big like Sonic game that you actually had a hand in, yeah, like would you say that it was like a huge like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm actually working on a Sonic game. I've been doing comics and now an official video game? What? So yeah, share, like tell us a little bit about
I mean,
Frontiers.
pretty much, it's always been a desire, but I never really thought I'd quite reach that peak. I never personally expected to make that jump, but incrementally here and there, I got a foot in the door with various projects. I impressed certain people, and that was just my name got passed up the chain of command until the stars aligned. It's like, all right, we want to do something that's more canonically driven. We want something that is decidedly written in the vein of the greater Sonic lore. You've been doing this for 15 years. You want to give it a shot? And it's like, yep, yes, I do. How do I do this? Let's find out.
Let's find out together. Um, and I also just recently noticed that you wrote on a Sonic Boom episode.
Two.
Yeah, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally almost forgot about that. But yeah, like writing for television, was it always also something that you didn't expect to like, I guess this is just a job offer that you weren't expecting to, take?
Yeah, I mean, I not that I was opposed to it. It's just I'd had no idea how to really break into that industry. And it just so happened that we were doing the Sonic Boom tie-in comic, and one of the showrunners, Bill Freeberger, saw what I was doing with the Sonic Universe, excuse me, Worlds Unite crossover with Sonic and Mega Man X and many other properties. And apparently, juggling 16 franchises at once was impressive to him. So he gave me the opportunity to pitch a few ideas to the show. I got to write a couple scripts. They touched some up in their own personal writing room, and there you go. I got to write a couple episodes of Boom.
Right on, man. Um, and I know that you also wrote the story for like Sonic Origins, and which is also really nice. So, tell us about how the Bumblecast came to be.
Bumblecast was kind of an evolution of the old web form I used to run, and that just became too much to keep track of. So we closed that down, but there was still a desire for interaction, folks wanting clarity and to another degree, a great deal of misinformation circulating online. So I want to be as transparent and as informative as possible because I had a hard time finding answers to just the basic stuff when I was coming up. So I want to give back to the community. I want to be the source of information, or at least a source of information where folks, have a hard time finding it. So we started up the Bumblecast, me and Kyle Kraus, who runs a video game music show called KNGI. I went to him because he had been running the show for years, just celebrated his 20th anniversary with that show. And I said, you know what you're doing. You help me out. And we didn't have any like big aspirations for it. We figured, this might run for a year or two until people get tired of us, and then we'll do something else with our time. And instead, we have so much content, it's hard to find time to schedule it all and record it all. So at this point, we are answering as many questions as we can for all our patrons and supporters and cranking out as many episodes as we possibly can.
Oh, totally, yeah. And for the Bumblecast, that was, would you say that it was um, something that really helped get your name out there, or like just something that you really started doing for fun, and then it just quickly became like, oh wow, I actually really love doing this. It is, just yeah, this is dope.
It's kind of fun. Like, my dad was in radio for years. And so I've always had that kind of in the back of my mind of something fun to do, to be behind the mic. And I never got into radio myself. Voice career never went anywhere. And it's like, well, this is kind of that by association. That's kind of fun. I don't know how much it did to help promote. We didn't really get big until we got a shout out from Nick over the Game Apologist. Tip of the hat to you, sir, who in one of his reviews mentioned us, and then we like doubled her subscribers within a month. And then we started snowballing from there. It slowed a little bit, but we have grown exponentially since that initial little push. And so appreciate it, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Let me see. So for your other comics like Mega Man, New Crusaders, that was those are also like a lot of oh yeah, and also Ninja Turtles and Archie. Yeah, like not because I know that Sonic, I know it's pretty much what you're the most well known for. I just think that I gotta bring these up because in case if I forget to mention these, like after we finish this, I'm gonna be like, oh darn. So yeah, I know especially because like I know there's also a lot of Ninja Turtles fans. So like, are all of these like franchises? Are these all stuff that you also grew up with? Or actually, what are some of your childhood like? Favorite like games or just franchises that you also were particularly fond of when you were a kid?
Well,
I guess we could just get to
I'm a kid of the 80s, so I grew up on all the toy commercials masked as cartoons. So, Thundercats, Silverhawks, He-Man, GoBots, Transformers. I'm probably forgetting a half a dozen more. It was always, bright, colorful, bigger than life characters doing cool things with clear messages, and that just kind of ingrained itself, rewired the brain, and that's what I'm kind of doing these days, is carrying that torch. These bright, colorful characters going on these amazing adventures. And it's nothing particularly or necessarily like deep, but there is at least some substance there to sink your teeth into and just have a good time. With Mega Man, it was a game series that I never got into myself because I am notoriously bad at video games and couldn't really get through most any of them. So when that title fell into my hands, it's like, okay, I need to do research. I know of Mega Man. I appreciate Mega Man. I don't know it like I do Sonic. And thankfully, the Mega Man fan base is just as robust and dedicated as the Sonic one. So all that information was already online and at my fingertips. And I just like deep dove into Mega Man for, a long while until I had everything figured out there. Crusaders, I kind of remembered ads for them back in the day when I was really little, but I wasn't as familiar with them. And that was Archie's attempt to revitalize the property. And that was fun because it was more or less a new superhero franchise. Like I like superhero stuff, and it was fun to be able to go into a mythos that hadn't been touched in decades and revitalize it and play with it and do some new stuff with it, but also had enough of a history to it so that there was a foundation to build off of and an older audience to go, oh, hey, I remember this, and come to it. Little sad it didn't take off as well as the other books, but so it goes. And then Ninja Turtles, I mean, come on. It's Ninja Turtles. Like one of the pillars of popular media. I still remember being a wee lad and going to was it a Kmart? And the action figures were flying off the shelves, and we started a queue waiting for somebody to come out with a box from the back room and open it, and everybody got to ask for one thing out of the box. And I was missing my Michelangelo, and I asked for Mikey, and he handed it off to me, and that was the best day. I got my Mikey. Fast forward, God, 20, 30 years. And with IDW, I got to write the Michelangelo macro. And that is one of the things I am most proud of. I got to build off of a bunch of other plot lines that had been seeded throughout up to that point. I got to bring it to a head. It actually was carried on by other writers in the rest of the titles. The art was freaking gorgeous. It was, I love that book. I don't care if I wrote it. That's good comic reading.
Right. So, yeah, that was just really nice that you got to share a little bit about your other comic work, which is, yeah, Chef's Kiss. So, let me see. Um, I know there's some other questions. Oh yeah, let me see. So, besides Sonic and all the other stuff that you got to work on, is there like anything else that you're interested? Like, have you thought about doing like any like what's on your bucket list or like dream like I guess properties that you would love to work on in the foreseeable future if you actually had the got the offer to do so?
Shoot, like just about anything. What like if I'm a big fan of it, then cool. I've wanted to work on this forever. If it's something I'm not as familiar with, it's an interesting challenge. Um, I would give my right foot to do a Star Fox book and do it my way. Just give me the reins and let me go nuts on that one. Um, we did pitch a Metroid book back in the Archie days that unfortunately never got any traction. And that one, I feel like you have to do a very specific way to do it right, but it could be really neat, a very different type of visual storytelling, not your conventional monthly adventure thing. I think you need to do it more like an art piece. Um, any of like the Marvel DC stuff I grew up reading as a kid might be fun to dabble in. Uh, something with the Legend of Zelda series, whether it's an adaptation or just a straight up new adventure using the tropes, that might be fun. And right now, in addition to the work that I'm currently doing that I can't talk about, there is a couple of original projects that I'm working on that I'm trying to get out the door, which is slower going, but we're getting there. One is a comedy fantasy called The Nine Lives of Claus McGee. We got the first issue out, went over very well. Working on the second issue now. And then there's a science fantasy epic that I'm working on with Adam Bryce Thomas from the Sonic series as well, called Drogoon. We're hoping to launch the Kickstarter to fund the first book here this year, but for now, it's just slowly building up hype again, get people interested in it, and we'll see where that takes us.
Hmm. Yeah, so I know I mentioned earlier about this T-shirt, how it was a nod to, Team Four Star. Are you
Mhm.
by any chance like familiar, or you're a fan of, their little projects like Bridge series and whatnot?
They are hilarious, and I will quote everything they say.
Yeah, right on. Um, yeah, we could just talk about TFS for hours, but unfortunately, we are kind of like almost going to be approaching the half-hour mark. So, yeah, I do wanted to ask you, like, since you've already done an extensive amount of writing for, comics and whatnot, can you share like any like tips or pieces of advice, like when it comes to writing or just anything, like what is the first thing that comes to mind? And if you have like any tips on, characterizations, the world story, you know, all that stuff, um, what's your like go-to like pieces of advice when it comes to, writing and
That's
stuff?
casting a broad net, but we'll try to touch on some highlights here.
Oh yeah, I might. Yep.
When if you're going to write comics, just write comics. Don't worry about making it perfect. Don't worry about making your grand magnum opus first thing. Just write a little 5 pager. Get it done. And it's going to be bad, and that's okay. Make as much bad content as you possibly can, because eventually it'll get good, and then you'll be happy with it. Um, if you have no idea where to begin, there's a number of books out there on how to start writing on comics or sample material out there, or at the very least, pick up a comic you enjoy and script it yourself. Like work backwards, deconstruct it. Look at the panel placement, look at the panel sizing, look at the staging of the characters, look at how the word balloons are rendered, look at any sound effects that are utilized or a lack thereof, and see how you would describe that, because the writer's job in the comics is to lay the foundation. You are making the blueprints for the art team to build off of. So you need to be descriptive, you need to be clear, and you need to be concise. You don't want to write two whole paragraphs for a single panel. That's too much to digest and understand. But you also don't want to write a panel and say, they fight. What does that mean? Who fights? Who is winning the fight? Who is throwing a punch? Are they shooting lasers? But give the artist some direction so they know what to do, because they have so much to do in so little time. Anything you can do to help ease the burden is a good thing. And look at the construction of a comic page. It isn't just squares within a rectangle and things happen. There is a flow to it, there is a pacing to it. If you have something that's extremely wordy, you need more room per panel to fit all that text. And how that text is read is going to be defined by how many balloons you have per panel, how those panels flow. If you want to have a rapid dialogue, you need to have a very quick and punchy delivery. Or if it's supposed to be some kind of monologue, it needs to be spaced out so you're not just reading, a book page that happens to be crammed in a floating balloon. Uh, Even if you are not particularly artistically inclined, try drawing a comic, try producing one at every level, because that will teach you to respect the craft. Um, the first comic thing I did that I can remember way back in the day was a series called Leet magazine, which was a collection of various online comic strips just done in comic format. And I was brought on to do the art chores for that. So line art, inking, shading, lettering, and it's awful. Like it's bad looking. You can kind of tell what's going on, but I'm kind of ashamed of it. But it taught me a lot and gave me a great deal of respect for those who work in that profession. So teach yourself something, put yourself through the trenches and get that experience, because even if you're not good at it, it will teach you what you're working with, what the medium provides. Something else to keep in mind is that, the comics are a static medium. You can hear the character voices in your head, you can envision all the cool action you want, but these are going to be still images that are silent no matter what. And that impacts how you render action, how you approach the flow of the storytelling, because you can't have too many actions happening at one time. It doesn't make sense for a character to be delivering a soliloquy while they're also drop kicking somebody out a window. That's silly. What else? What else? What else? What else? Do not pin all your hopes and dreams on getting that one star book that you want more than anything else. Don't give up on that dream. By all means, doggedly pursue it. Never give up on that, because if you give up, that's the end. If you keep trying, as much as it may be frustrating, it means you still have a chance. It took me 4 years to even get a reply from Archie. And then I got my lucky break. 4 years of absolute nothing until I got that one chance. So go for it. The worst anyone can tell you is no. And no can always become yes tomorrow. So stick to it. But don't hang all your aspirations on that. Be ready to do other work, do other comics, do your own stuff. We live in an age where you can put your own material out there for nominal cost at most and just produce. That's what really comics are about, is producing. It's making stories, it's sharing that with other people. And by creating, you will improve your own skills and you will gain more attention, and who knows what doors that will open for you. Don't worry about getting your dream gig, just worry about producing your craft, doing what you love, and also have a viable job skill on the back burner, because even I had to fry chicken to make the bills, to pay the bills month to month sometimes. So be ready to have a little bit of slice of humble pie, but also don't give up on what you love. There might have been
Oh,
some
man.
coherent advice in there somewhere as I rambled.
No, no, no. It's all good. It's all good, man. I guess this brings us to the end of this little episode. So, yeah, is there anything else that you want to share or talk about? Like, I know there's some upcoming projects that you're working on that you can't disclose at the moment, which is understandable. But, yeah, just would you like to share anything else that you want to discuss right now that people
I,
might be interested?
as much as I love to tease with that hashtag knowing smile, I do have to keep myself reined back. So if you want to know more about the stuff I've produced over the years, head over to bumbleking.com. That has links to my portfolio. It has a link to the web shop where you can buy comics that are signed for free. It has links to the Bumblecast and instructions on how you can get your own question answered on the show. It's got links to my personal projects. It has links to projects that I've done for everybody else. It's like the one stop shop for me.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely look into that. So, do you have like any last piece of like, I guess, wisdom that you'd like to bestow upon us?
As I sign out on every episode of the Bumblecast, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. And we will see you next time on the Station Square podcast.
Eve. So yeah, like where can people follow you on? Where can we stop? I mean, find you.
In
Yeah.
addition to bumbleking.com, you can also find me on Twitter at Ian Flynn BKC.
Oh, and I guess with all of that said, for my closing thoughts, if there's anything that you want to do, just do it. And yeah, remember, the possibilities are endless. Reach for the stars, get out there, and just go for it. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. So thank you very much for listening in. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time at Station Square. And until then, have a good day, and yeah, happy Easter weekend. And until then, see ya, folks. Stay good, be good, and yeah, stay awesome. All right, see you later, guys. Bye. Peace.